Hello everyone, my name is Michael and I'm a 10th grade student from IPEKA Intergrade Christian School from Jakarta, Indonesia. And today I'll be sharing to you guys about the inverted U-shaped world. Aristotle once said, "Both excessive and defective exercise destroys the health." And similarly, drink or food which is above or below a certain amount destroys the health, while that is which proportionate both produces and increases and preserves it. So who is it then in the case of temperance and courage and the other virtues? This quote by Aristotle illustrates how this concept of proportion has been thought of by the great philosophers at that time, thousands of years ago, including Aristotle. Recently, I read a book entitled David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, and it talked about how we live in an inverted U-shaped world based on proportion. But what is the inverted U-shape? In a journal article by Barry Schwartz and Adam Grant, they share to us what the inverted U-shaped world is. The inverted U-shape is basically a curve. And in that left part of the curve, as it progresses, the addition of quantity produces an exponential increase in benefits. But however, the exponential increase in benefits does not last forever. When it reaches the rather flat part of the curve, things start getting different. When the quantity is added, the effects are minor, or in some cases, no effects at all. When it reaches the turning point, or right at the middle of the curve, things get even more different. As it progresses to the right part of the curve, the effects that are produced aren't of beneficial ones, but of adverse ones. In this journal article by Barry Schwartz and Adam Grant, they state that all positive traits and states, at an extremely high amount, they produce more cost than benefits. And this is exactly what we have a hard time distinguishing between the advantages and disadvantages of something. We forget that we operate in an inverted U-shaped world. We say misleading facts such as fat is bad for your health, when in fact, fat is essential and necessary for your nutritional needs. But however, it should be consumed in moderation. Another example. One of the most discussed topics in the education system is class size. For starters, I am currently enrolled in a class of around 30 students. And to put it simply, the class is simply out of control. Even the most charismatic teachers cannot control the class because there's an overflow of energy coming from the class. And it often results in the class being disrupted. In this case, numerous researchers have found that a smaller class size, such as a class of 20, performs significantly better. But can a class size get too small? Can a class size of 12 or even say 9 potentially benefit the learning process of the students? Well, presumably at first thoughts, the teachers can give more attention and more guidance, thus acting as a booster for the child's intellectual development. But however, is this the case? I can say, absolutely not. I've been in a class of 12 students before, and frankly, it is as quiet as a church. Games, discussions, and other learning methods were hard to conduct, as there is a lack of energy in that classroom. And one French teacher in the US shared his plight on teaching a class of 9 as he feels frustrated because the momentum just isn't there. The economist Levin adds to this and states there is a correlation between academic ability and the number of peers you have. Because in a classroom, you need people you can learn with, you can relate with, and also people you can learn from. And what a really small class size does is that it takes away those peers that are extremely essential for your learning. And besides that, when one person does not get along with the other person in a small class environment, they cannot get away from each other. And imagine that happening for 1 full year. It is a situation which is more than troublesome. And therefore, through these examples, we can see that things that first appear to be an advantage turn out to be a disadvantage. So, what is the ideal number of students in a class? Mr. Malcolm Gladwell did a poll of a huge number of teachers in the US and Canada. And most of them came up with one number, the number 16. They said that it has the right amount of energy in the class, and at the same time, the teacher can maintain control of the class. Coincidentally, a year after I had a class of 12, I had a class of 16. And in that class of 16, it was much better as the interaction between students and teachers was there. And the lesson could progress well because there was enough energy in that classroom. And therefore, through these examples, we can see that there's indeed an inverted U-shaped world, a curve in class size. Now, let's move on to something a bit more controversial. Does money buy happiness? Proponents of the idea that money can buy happiness would most likely quote a person living in poverty, working double jobs just to get food in the table. But however, opponents of the idea that money can buy happiness would quote a billionaire, an isolated billionaire, such as the likes of Mr. Marcus Persson, the creator of Minecraft. He lives an extravagant lifestyle people can only dream of. But however, he states that he has never felt more isolated than his current state. Why is this? Because he has lost his meaning of life. He has no direction and he constantly asks, what next? What next after all this fame, all this wealth, all this success gained by him? Well, weighing those both sides, well, definitely we can presume that probably we would agree one over the other. But however, what if both sides are correct? In a Princeton University study, they state that the rate of happiness and the income rate is directly proportional until the $75,000 mark. So, in other words, if your salary increases from $10,000 to $50,000, the rate of happiness will increase exponentially. But however, when your income increases from $100,000 to $150,000, the increase in the rate of happiness is not observable. And this is, in economic terms, is called diminishing marginal returns. But however, in some cases, such as in the case of Mr. Marcus Persson, he is in the extreme right part of the curve, where the curve starts going down. Even though this is not always the curve, it's definitely a struggle living on that part of the curve, where a high rate of income does not necessarily guarantee a peace of mind. So through all these examples I have stated previously, we know that there's an inverted U-shaped curve everywhere. Whether we work as lawyers, doctors, engineers, teachers, or even a gardener, we all have our own inverted U-shaped curve. But however, each and every one of us should pursue one thing: to be on the top part of the curve where we reap most benefits. As when we're in that top part of the curve, we not only make our lives a better one, but also this world a better place. Thank you.